In early May 2022, law enforcement was still trying to find a missing inmate and guard days after their daring escape from the Lauderdale County Jail.
This is now a major case for the United States Marshal Service, which triggers additional resources. I won't go into the exact number.
It was getting frustrating, and they were worried about their missing colleague, guard Vicky White.
The employees are just devastated that she was involved in this, and they're concerned for her, concerned for her safety, as are we. And, we just hope that this has a good ending.
Vicky Sue White and Casey Cole White were not related, despite having the same last name. Vicky was 18 years and 1 day older than Casey, and they were no one's idea of a perfectly matched couple. On April 29th, Vicky helped Casey, a convict serving 75 years for a crime spree in 2015, escape. Vicky was a highly respected assistant director of corrections. She'd put in 25 years with the department and was hours away from a comfortable retirement. Her colleagues loved her. Why then would someone who had everything to lose throw it all away? That's the question we're asking on Inside Job, Understanding Vicky White, a true crime podcast from Troy Public Radio. I'm Ann Kenda. Vicky White was set to retire at the end of her shift on the day of the escape. It confused Sheriff Rick Singleton, who'd known Vicky for many years.
Yes. She'd been talking about retiring for 3 or 4 months, and, and had done some things. She did sell her home about a month ago and talked about going to the beach. That's just, everybody thought she was going to retire.
Vicky had sold her house for fast cash for below market value. She was 56, divorced with no children. Her ex-husband had died the previous January after a long and painful battle with Parkinson's disease. They had divorced many years ago, but those who knew her wondered whether Tommy White's death could have had something to do with her uncharacteristic behavior. The escape happened about 3 months after he died. Corrections officers have a difficult job by any standard. Longtime guards have often compared their years on the job to a prison sentence. Their family and friends often ask why they don't get a better job. Clinique Chapman is with the Vera Institute, which studies the effects of mass incarceration. The U.S. puts the highest number of people behind bars per capita in the entire world.
It is certainly impacting those who are incarcerated, their families and communities. But this causes economic instability by removing income earners from their families and communities. And then there's this increased toll that's not often really discussed in conversations about the toll on correction staff. And we know that they suffer from poor health outcomes, have higher rates of PTSD, higher than military veterans, and often have double the suicide rate of police officers. And so there's really just like this trickle-down effect as it relates to mass incarceration in the prison system.
And the cycle of harm that affects prison guards, when it comes to prison guards, is that recognized enough, or do they tend to get kind of swept under the rug?
Yeah, I think we're learning more and more through research, obviously, about the harms that are experienced by correctional officers and being able to really see the impact. And like I said, through the suicide rates, unfortunately, the diagnosed post-traumatic stress disorder that's coming out of that field, we really are starting to understand the cost and the toll of mass incarceration. And it's not just for those who are incarcerated in these oppressive systems. Oppressive systems are impacting anyone that comes in contact with them, and that includes those who are working within them as well.
Are there ways to mitigate the harm that we're talking about when prison guards experience stress and burnout and depression? Are there any ideas out there for ways to restructure the job so that doesn't happen?
Definitely. Thank you. So, across the country, we see corrections departments really grappling with overwhelming challenges that kind of trap staff and incarcerated people in this like dangerous loop, this cycle. And so, the battlefield like culture that's correctional staff work under, it heightens their stress, increases their anxiety and exhaustion, and leads to high turnover rates that further compounds the conditions and experiences of those who are inside living and working.
The Vera Institute is working on alternative housing models to rethink the traditional role of guards. Wasantha Jayawardena, assistant professor of public health at Southern Illinois University, recently put together one of the few academic studies on the health effects of working as a prison guard.
Unfortunately, people don't always realize how hard their work is, so they don't get the support they need. And when prison guards are stressed and leave their jobs, it creates problems for the whole prison system, making it harder to keep things running smoothly and safely.
Jayawardena's study found that corrections guards live to an average of 59 years old, notably lower than the general population average of 75 years old. Part of that is due to suicide, substance use, and just poor health in general.
And we found that many prison guards deal with this stress in unhealthy ways, like drinking alcohol. Over 70% reported this, which is much higher than the general population, or using sedatives or sleeping pills. About 17% reported this to relax or relieve stress or sleep. So, and these coping mechanisms ultimately can lead to more serious health problems. The constant stress also causes burnout, making guards feel tired, unmotivated, and frustrated at work.
And, as you might imagine, the job gets harder to do.
When this happens, they may struggle to stay positive in their roles. And we also found that many guards don't feel comfortable asking for help with stress at work, and about half said they prefer to handle it alone. This shows the need for better, more welcoming support programs and interventions to improve their well being and help them live healthier and longer lives.
Clinique Chapman says those health effects are often combined with low pay, long hours, and minimal emotional support for the job.
And then that exacerbates the staffing shortages, leading to frequent lockdowns and disruptions in programming, family visitations. It's really purpose-filled activities for those who are incarcerated, which then, the trickle down I was mentioning, like it then leads to an increase in violence within the prisons. And so you really can visualize this cycle of harm being perpetuated and less than humane conditions being experienced by both those who are incarcerated and those who work in the prisons. And lastly, related to your question, I like to point out that when I mentioned that it's a we issue, and it'll also take a collective to really create and implement solutions.
At 56, Vicky White seemed ready to move on after many years of the long hours and minimal emotional support for the job. She'd submitted her retirement papers and told colleagues she planned to spend 3 or 4 months on the beach before deciding what to do next. They were excited for her and thought she might take another job, one outside of law enforcement. No one expected Vicky to become a household name for a daring escape with an inmate 18 years her junior, just hours before that planned and well-deserved retirement. It took several days, but law enforcement finally got a tip about the couple on the run from an unexpected place some 300 miles away.
So I go back and watch my cameras again. That's when I seen his girlfriend pull up in a Cadillac and pick him up.
James Stinson, manager of a car wash in Evansville, Indiana, called in when he found an abandoned truck at the car wash and checked his security video. He matched the tattoos on the very tall man in the video with a picture of missing Alabama inmate Casey White. He let the police know and waited.
So then I called the marshals back this morning. I said, look, she's still with him. I got her on camera. He said, oh, well, you're the bomb. We need to see that video. I said, okay. So then 9:30, they're not here.
Stinson decided it was time to call a TV station.
So I said, I get on the phone to Fox News. I said, y'all want a story? Yeah, we like a story. I said, I got one. So I got a convict over at my car wash. I got him on camera. He said, you talking about the one in Kentucky? I said, no, I'm talking about the one in Alabama with the girl. He said, okay, we'll be right there.
The Fox News affiliate was on scene 10 minutes before the marshals.
That's when Stinson showed us the surveillance video with 6'9" Casey White clearly visible.
In the end, Stinson did not get the $25,000 reward offered for any information that led to a capture. Why? Because he had notified the news station. Next time on Inside Job, U.S. Marshals change their M.O. in the search for Vicky and Casey.
For the Evansville Courier and Press, they told me they half thought the idea that the Whites would still be in Evansville was crazy. You know, who goes on the run and doesn't run? But these veteran officers were still energized by the possibility that they just might have stuck around.
More on the Whites' time in Evansville next time on Inside Job, Understanding Vicky White, a true crime podcast from Troy Public Radio. Austin Toy is our producer. Kyle Gassett edits the podcast. Inside Job is dedicated in loving memory to true crime buff Mandy Rose Morrow. Until next time when we go inside again, I'm your host, Ann Kenda.